Welcome back, everybody. Let's see if we can't redeem ourselves from this last video. Man, what a fiasco that was. But today's a new day. Let's get going. We're going to do a filter and fluid change on transmission and black sheep. I also got some header gaskets I need to replace, and water temp gauge needs to be replaced. So let's get to it. Okay, y'all, I've went ahead and replaced that temperature gauge in the dash. When we had that overheating issue, it wrapped this one around and pretty much snapped it off. So y'all seen me take this dash out before. You just got to be careful with it. It's like 5 or 6 screws and a bunch of clips. Now I just got to run the sending unit out there to the intake and plug it up. So let's get out there and do that. Right there, that brass fitting is the sending unit for the temperature gauge. I need to swap those out. When I remove that, it's going to lose some coolant, so I'm going to go ahead and pop that loose now and let whatever's going to leak out of there drain down. That way, when we're underneath the bottom of it, we can clean our mess up, dry everything up, make sure we don't have any new leaks, and we'll fish that old sending unit through the dash there and chunk it in the garbage. Okay, now I got y'all under the vehicle here. One good thing about this truck not being lowered yet is we don't have to jack it up to be able to service this transmission. So what you're looking at now is the transmission pan. These are going to have about 20 bolts, depending on what transmission you have. It could be a few more, a few less, but they're going to be 1/2-inch bolts all the way around the perimeter. If you notice, these transmissions do not have a drain plug, which makes it kind of a messy job to do. So I'm going to try to do this with minimal mess, which I don't think it's going to happen, but I got my drain pan sitting directly below the transmission. I got a few pieces of styrofoam and cardboard underneath of it, hopefully to catch any overspill. But I'm going to loosen up these perimeter bolts on this pan, which I'm more than likely, since I have a Hurst shifter in this thing, the linkages and the shift, the transmission lines and the shift linkages on the driver's side of the transmission. I'm going to go ahead and unplug those, as well as the neutral safety switch and anything else that might be in my way. I know the bracket for that shift linkage is bolted using the transmission pan bolts, so I have to drop that and get it out of the way. It might be worth noting that right now I have the truck in neutral with the wheels chalked up. The reason for that is I'm not sure if this converter has a drain on it itself. Some of these later Dodge torque converters had a drain plug on the torque converter itself, so I left the truck in neutral so I could spin the engine over, and if that torque converter has a drain plug on it, I'm going to completely drain that and fill it back with fresh fluid. So what I'm going to do now is loosen up these perimeter bolts, but I'm going to leave the front ones a little tighter. That way the back of the pan drops before the front of the pan does, and hopefully I'll be able to catch my fluid as it runs out of the back. We'll probably end up making a big mess, but we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, y'all, I got the back bolts out. I went ahead and removed both of the mufflers so it can give me more room to get in here and work around. I got the bracket for the shift linkage unbolted, got it pulled to the side. As you can see, we already got some transmission fluid leaking out of the back of the pan here, so let's see if we can't make a big old mess. I'm really hoping I can drop this without flooding the driveway with transmission fluid. Like this bolt right here is holding most of the weight of the rear of the pan up. Hopefully I'm not getting ready to take a shower in this stuff. apply this gently so it don't just drop all of a sudden. And catch most of it. So far so good, y'all. Missed a little bit on this side, but that's not a major deal. This won't get the transmission pan completely empty, but hopefully this will drain enough of it to where we can drop the front bolts and support the pan as we lower it to the ground. Okay, I managed to drop the pan completely down. It's sitting in the drain pan. You can't see it's out of the frame, but I'm basically just letting that transmission finish doing its little dripping there. You can see the filters right here. It's held on by 3 screws. And I told y'all wrong earlier, on this drain pan, it's 14 bolts that hold that drain pan on, or the transmission pan, I'm sorry. But the good thing about these transmission filter kits that you buy from the parts store, they go ahead and include both gaskets for the 904 and the 727 because they use the same filter, so they'll cover a wide range of vehicles, so you don't have to worry about getting the wrong gasket. So I'm going to let that finish dripping. We'll pull the drain pan out from underneath the vehicle. We'll inspect the magnet. There should be a magnet inside the transmission pan that catches any clutch material. We'll clean everything up, get our bolts together, clean all that up, install the new filter, clean the maintenance surfaces for the transmission pan, and get ready to put it back together. Okay, I have everything laid out here on the workbench. I went ahead and laid the gaskets out in the sun so they'd kind of flatten out. That's the gasket we need for the transmission we're working on, which is 727. They also include the gasket for the 904. There's the new filter. And here's what we found in the pan. Now, I'm not no transmission guy, and I don't claim to be. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that's not good. So, needless to say, this thing might have transmission issues. Now, the ironic thing about that is, yesterday, I actually sold a 727 that I was keeping for backup to a gentleman. So that might prove to come back to bite me in the butt. But we do have one spare transmission. I'm not sure of its condition, but I might have to start looking into that. So now I'm going to clean the pan out, clean all the debris out of that pan, spray it down with some brake cleaner real good, get the gasket positioned on there with a little RTV, go underneath the truck, dry up the maintenance surfaces for that transmission pan, install the new filter, and button her back up. We'll see y'all under the truck. Okay, y'all, for the most part, this is pretty straightforward. Just basically reversing process you did earlier. And of course, my screwdriver's away on the other side of the truck. New filter installed. Now next, like I said, I'll come through here and clean up all these surfaces so the gasket can have a good seal. I'm also going to see if I can find an O-ring for that dipstick tube. I think I got one that might fit it in my O-ring stash. So let me go grab the pan and we'll bolt that back up. Okay, I'm back, y'all. I just took some ultra black RTV, cleaned this pan out really good first, and took some ultra black RTV and kind of stuck our gasket into place. Got all our bolts cleaned up. Now it's time to make sure there ain't no dirt in that pan. We'll send her home. Just gotta be careful not to tear it. Y'all get the idea. I'm not going to bore you with all 14 of these bolts. I'll cut away and we'll come back once we get this pan bolted up. Okay, let me catch you up to speed. Got the transmission filter on, transmission pan back on. We went ahead and did the header gaskets. Cleaned down, wiped down the block and everything where we had that coolant spill all over the side of the block, wiped down the firewall. Drained the radiator because it had straight water in it. Drained the radiator, filled it up with fresh antifreeze. Replaced the rubber lines that connect to the transmission cooler. Put 2 new lines on that. And what else did I do? Hooked up the water temp sending unit. And I got for right now, I got 4 quarts of transmission fluid in the transmission itself. I'm gonna crank the truck in neutral so the pump will automatically start pumping. Because when these things are in park, they don't, the transmission pump's not pumping anything. So I'm gonna crank it in neutral while